in some instances, the laws also, limited these goodies to just people who were also elected, and also that they were never impeached out of office. Now, you fast forward to now, these entitlements, for what are they really there for? Is it a man who has decided that he needs to enrich his job portfolio by being of service to the people, for fitting perhaps more lucrative enterprises and ventures for a lower income job? Because ordinarily, being a governor does not mean that a person is automatically supposed to be a billionaire. But in the context of what we have, going on in Nigeria today, the person who sits as governor or deputy governor, particularly since these are the category of also public offices that we're talking about in this conversation, do not get to even touch their income at all. You go to look at the budget. I remember there was a moment I brought up the budget for government house in Kaduna, for instance, and found that the overhead, the head of government house in Kaduna was performing far better than the overhead in education entirely. And when you talk about education, you're talking about overhead that is going to cross-cut between primary schools, secondary schools, and tertiary institutions. The entire overhead for education in Kaduna State was nothing compared to the overhead that was for government house in between the period of 2016 up until 2022 budget performance. And so then you keep that aside. Now you go into the nitty-gritty there. You find entertainment and refreshment. You have issues of international travels. You have even issues of tours and what have you. You even have gifts and donations that are even part of that kind of expense. And then you consider all of these things for who? Now, when you come back to look at public procurement, which I will usually say, if you take that out of government, a lot of people will have no business going into government because there will really be no money to steal. And so the public procurement process itself, when people who preside as governors sit, do they allow for transparent, accountable processes that guides public procurement, or they still continue to allocate projects to themselves, allow the charade to happen that open bidding or open competitive bids are happening, that the best bidder could win, and at the end of the day, even when the best bidder emerges, are these best bidders encouraged to come back and pay a certain amount as kickback before they can take charge of the job? Now, look at Kaduna State. I'm giving examples about Kaduna. I'm not going to go far from Kaduna State. Look at Kaduna State entirely. We've had township roads, under construction. Township roads rehabilitation have happened in Barnawa as a district. It has happened around Oriakpata, down to Malali, and a lot of other places where just roads within communities are being built. And then you come down to the urban renewal projects in terms of the dualization of some roads, the reconstruction of some roads there. How many of these roads projects have really gone through open competitive bidding, especially with the fact that billions, have been sunk into this project? Now, who in Kaduna, for instance, has information concerning how much each of the kilometers of this road is being built? Are we sure that we have been that currently we can say we are getting value for money? And if there are infractions around the dispensation of this procurement, who does it profit? So we cannot have a situation where people come in to occupy public offices and claim that they will do everything they can on our behalf for our common good, and then they turn around and allocate projects to themselves and staff thriving businesses within the state, and yet will want to clamp these businesses down with high level of taxation and deny them the right to businesses at the same time, and continue to service the patronage, to service family and friends and loyalties and patronages within political parties and cronies. As these things continue, how can these people who administer public treasury in that regard, come back to say again that they are entitled to any form of pension? How does a governor who seeks to deny persons who have been relieved of their employment since 2016 or 17 or 18, and after 8 years, of governance, turn around to say he's entitled to pension on gratuity when the people he has sacked from office have also not been paid? How does a governor who sits on salaries, arrears of months, even 30 months, like the case of ABBA now, for instance, come back to say that he's entitled to some packages as pensions or gratuity or pensions at the end of his service? And that is why politicians are standing out. I remember some politicians have, in the course of the recent contest, come out to show their credentials that they have not collected a dime from public coffers right after they left office. That public service is not a career, it's not a lifetime career or something that you would hold on to and say, because I have occupied so office, I'm entitled to this benefits. And so certainly the people who have circumvented public treasury to become a private purse and wallet, that we day by day hear and see that they are giving gifts in millions, and to the chagrin of an impoverishing population, and are now coming back to say that they are entitled to some of these benefits. These are actually laughable. But worse still is the fact that there are some who are collecting these entitlements and are yet still in public service. And some of them will emerge either as ministers or as senators, and you will still hear that they are still entitled to this remuneration. And so something needs to be done, and something needs to be done quick, because certainly the National Security Advisor, the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation and Fiscal, Commission will have to come in now to really help address this situation where governors are stealing the states blind. Because I will tell you for truth that if these bills these pieces of laws that empowers governors to have access to such entitlements are going to be subject, to public scrutiny and debate, certainly by public opinion and vote, I would expect that such laws will be repealed. But no, the process is that the State House of Assembly must have to be innovative again to come up with strategies, to come up with ways and means of seeing to it that the people can really have their voices backing a repeal of such laws, because it is needful and necessary at a point in time like this. Remember, Jeremiah, that currently most of these states have collected loans in billions for particular sectors, and most of the time, I will challenge anybody who cares to know to go in and check whether these loans have performed as they should. Now, not too long ago, the issue of about $750 million marked for the Nigerian COVID-19 recovery program or facility, that is the NGKS facility from the World Bank, has been on ground in states. Some states have subscribed to that. A lot of states in Nigeria, in fact, have subscribed to that. And the vision is to take $100 million million people out of poverty. I want to tell you that even the facilitators of that program in Kaduna State have not been paid their entitlement, so they have not even been lifted out of poverty, let alone the people that are supposed to benefit from it. If the platform is allowed for beneficiaries to come back and give feedback as to what they have gotten, as against what is expected to reach them, from what the program design is all about, you will find that they have been shortchanged. Because when somebody is supposed to get 4 bags of fertilizer or 6 bags of fertilizer and he's given 3, and he's supposed to enjoy up to 4 liters of herbicide and he's given just 3, and even when he is entitled to seeds, for instance, and the seeds are not available because the procurement did not happen, how then do you lift people out of poverty? So in most instances, we see loans being taken and the same loans being diverted by people who are in position and office, because the interest is not really of being of service to the people. And so such people who have served as governors, and have stolen from revenue, internally generated revenue, stolen from federal allocation, stolen from the value-added tax that accrues to the state, stolen even from loans and grants that the state is benefiting, certainly should not be entitled to any form of stipends or pension or whatever it is, as the case may be. In my opinion, there is no reason for a public servant who has served a political appointment to even be paid even anything like a pension or gratuity at all.
All right, the other issue we have this morning is the seeming unrest in the southeastern region of the country. And this, of course, arose from the sit-at-home order, Monday sit-at-home order that was initially initiated by the IPOB. And now we have it on right authority that Nnamdi Kanu has come forward to say no, this is not what he wants done at this hour. And a faction of the IPOB have also come forward to say no, this sit-at-home should stop. But last week we saw some persons unleash some form of mayhem on persons who came out to seek their daily bread. We also saw a video of the person who is believed to be the one spearheading it right now, Simon Ekpa, who insists that, there are certain things that is calling for the agitation in this regard. But a headline pops up this morning and it reads, Ekpa hired to destabilize Southeast, frustrate Kanu's release to enrich self, says Ohaneze. So what are your thoughts on this development, sir? Hello? Okay. I don't know what happened here. I really can't hear you that clearly. But go ahead.
When government, however, refuses to play by the law and take up some very wrong routes to resolving conflict and crisis, certainly we get the kind of backlog and backlash that we are actually seeing now, because the situation in the Southeast is spiraling into something much worse than we have seen over time. Now, government itself must uphold the rule of law. The issue of Nnamdi Kanu has repeatedly been discussed, with the court really placing clearly what the position of law is concerning his arrest and his detention. Government, however, in Nigeria have continued to use this crisis to an advantage that ordinarily we do not understand. The same situation being meted on Nnamdi Kanu is not also far different from what the Islamic cleric Sheikh Zenzaki is facing today. These are cases that have gone on, these are issues that have gone on trial. The courts have ruled on some of these issues, and yet you do not see government complying, especially when the ruling does not favor the administration of the day. And so for me, I believe that the rule of law first must be upheld. The idea that you get to hear rumor millers saying that no, Kano or El Zazaki are being detained for their own good. You cannot keep a man prisoner when he opines to be free against his own will and intentions. It cannot be for his own good. So the first and foremost, government must uphold the rule of law concerning these two individuals, and then begin to also improve the security architecture across the entire nation. There is no point where the citizens of Nigeria have offered the right to coercion or use of violence, the monopoly of violence to the state, and yet the state continues to, provide the spaces for unlicensed and uncommissioned individuals as scrupulous individuals and elements to continue to hold the people and the state ransom. The idea that there is criminality ongoing in the southeast is not in doubt, but certainly the role of government in aiding and abating it is also something that really needs to be cross-examined. And I think that the president must be forthright and forthcoming with this on these issues. I remember it was the late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua that saw the need, to mold resources and put together the amnesty program. Today, there is some semblance of peace and stability in the Niger Delta as a result of that. And not just because amnesty had been provided for, but because some certain level of social injustices that the people had also clamored for has actually been addressed. But in the case of the Southeast, we have had a president that just got out of office who went to the United States and said that he is not going to favor 95% over 5%. And so the issue of marginalization was even a matter of policy of the former administration, because policies are not just about making it, they're also about statements from leaders, and they're also about their disposition in implementing the issue, in implementing the policy of states. So we have seen a situation where the issue of marginalization against the Southeast has continued to be an issue on the front burner. The issue of national unity has continued to be a challenge for us under the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, and it has transited till this moment. Most of the time, I feel that there was a challenge implementing the APC manifesto under President Muhammadu Buhari, and certainly the new man on board, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as president today, has a more firmer understanding of what that manifesto is, as against what the president was able to implement. And certainly let us see the implementation of this progressive manifesto in a way that harnesses national unity, inclusive development, inclusive governance, inclusive growth, and inclusive economic empowerment for all in Nigeria. And so the challenge in the Southeast is a challenge that I know state governors have continued to look into it. The Southeast Governors Forum have continued to look into this matter, and certainly governors in this state have recommendations already that they have drawn up on these issues. They have also made appeals to the federal government concerning it. The Ohaneze Ndigbo is still talking about the release of Nnamdi Kanu, and they are not asking for it to be done outside what the courts have also, upheld. And so certainly the federal government in itself must actually address injustices in the Southeast and come clean on the issues of this conflict that is happening there, that indeed government is not having any hand in how it is being mismanaged, to where it is getting to today. I, for one, can say that the situation in the Southeast, whatever form of criminality is happening in the Southeast, is not as worse as what we have seen in northern Nigeria, and yet we do not see the same kind of interest in terms of exercising military might and power in trying to bring back stability across the Nigerian state, like we are seeing happening in the Southeast.
All right, let's quickly take this commercial. We'll come right back and then we'll talk about the EU report. Stay with us.
Sometimes it's much more than that.
Okay, good to know. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know the blessing, the blessedness of just being alive and well.
Certainly.
All right. So before we go into some of the topics that I have penned out today, because our time is really very limited, I noticed that it seems like some governors have started setting the pace for certain things. Governors, ex-governors. We have, I'm trying to remember his name, and I remembered it just now, who has said he's no longer collecting pensions. One of the southern governors. I'll remember it at some point. And then there is, I think his name is Alex Oti now, who has paid 38 months arrears of workers' salaries. And it was really shocking. And I'm hoping that other states where there's a heavy backlog of salaries unpaid will also take their cue from there. I don't know, probably there are one or two other governors who have decided to do something different. I think there was also the Osun State governor who also came and paid a backlog of salaries as well. So do we take this as a new face of the current democracy?
Well, I think definitely democracy will continue to grow into, higher level of maturity and more better practices as the days unfold. Certainly, the issue of backlogs of salaries is something that ought not to be the case where a government is functional and working. But you find that civil servants are now part of the debt stock, are now part of the creditors of government, where government is accommodating unpaid salaries as part of its debt stock. And so in such a space or geographical space in Nigeria, I would wonder what anti-graft institutions are doing, because certainly these salaries and wages are already appropriated for by law. The budget is usually a law the moment it is passed by the House of Assembly or National Assembly and assented to by the governor or president. And so in a situation where people can pick up monies allocated or appropriated for something into any other venture that they please, it's actually a thing of concern. And let's also look at frivolities that are around that space. You find a government that is so poor, highly dependent on debt, doling out free gifts and cash bonanzas to cronies, to friends, to acquaintances, and to loyalists or praise singers. And so the idea that the resources of state are not being put into judicious use, for improving welfare and the security of the people is actually something that must never be in doubt. Kudos to people like Alex Oti and also the current governor of Osun State, Adeleke, who had taken interest in ensuring that the plights, of civil servants are actually addressed. Remember again, Jemima, when you go to most of these states, the moment salaries or wages are not paid, the atmosphere of poverty becomes very, very thick and evident. So because whatever, even the informal economy or sector rather, will always be dependent on the formal sector to thrive. And in some states, you don't go to find any other enterprise that is actually at work. Some states don't have anything as a real private sector. They at most will have SMEs, and maybe in their real micro or small scale, and these are just the taxpayers that you have within the space and system. And there are states I can point to that usually we even out of coinage call them civil service states, because
I think Kaduna is one of them.
In the state, the entire source of income is actually from government. So if you have that situation where state governors are refusing to make pay, it puts the nation and the economy in peril.